So as part of lesson 3, Azure VM's backup and restore. So we'll try to understand, okay, how you can back up the Azure virtual machines and how we can restore the Azure virtual machines. So it could be suitable for small organizations and large organizations and for individuals who are running like a couple of virtual machines. Okay. So we have Azure virtual machines in, let's say, an West US2 region. So Azure will not provide any kind of a guarantee for our data. So if for some reason the virtual machine gets corrupt, by default, Azure will not provide any kind of a recovery process or a backup mechanism. So it is the customer responsibility to have necessary backups in place. So the Azure is only providing you an infrastructure to run your virtual machine, but he is not giving you a guarantee for the data or the virtual machine corruption for anything. So we need to ensure that we have some kind of a backup in place. For some reasons, a virtual machine gets corrupted or the disk which is attached to the virtual machine got corrupt or something happens to the OS of the virtual machine or some kind of a ransomware attack or whatever it could be the reasons. So we need to have some kind of a backup in place so that we can restore this thing. So we have a recovery services vault. So I'm talking about an RSV. So as we discussed in earlier video, so there is a recovery services vault is a storage location provided by Azure to store our backup data and configure backup jobs, policies, and everything. So, and this also provides an option where we can replicate this backup to the different geo region as part of the RSV replication. So we have virtual machines. So there are two ways which we can configure the backup for virtual machines. One, we can go to the RSV Recovery Services Vault, and from there, we can select all the virtual machines and apply an backup policy to all the virtual machines. Or we can have an individual virtual machine, go to an individual virtual machine and enable a backup for individual virtual machines. So any data which is being stored in RSV, so which is encrypted in the background and stored by using the Microsoft encryption keys. And in order to recover the data from a backup, it would take a longer time because the write performance on this could be good, but the read performance or something is not good. So we have two virtual machines. I just created two virtual machines and for demonstration purpose. And we have a recovery services vault. So I'm going to the recovery services vault. And we would see called as in backups. So when I go to the backup items, here we will be able to see the list of all the backup items which are configured and count like an Azure virtual machines. One virtual machine has been configured for backup using Azure Backup agent. How many like backup servers are how many? All this shows you like and what are all the backup configurations available. So I'm going to the overview. I'm saying called as a backup. So where is your workload running? So we are trying to take a backup of the Azure. So I'm selecting an Azure. And what do you want to backup? Virtual machines and backup. So here we would see called as an policies. So enhanced and standard. So by default, Azure will provide the default two policies, one as a standard, one as enhanced for virtual machines. The standard once a day backup. So daily once it takes a backup and it preserves that backups for a period of 5 days. Whereas in enhanced, multiple backups per day. So we can configure multiple backups per day. Like in every 3 hours, we want to have a backup. And we can retain them for 30 days of time. We can preserve that backups for 30 days of time so that the backups don't get overwrite. And this supports for trusted launch Azure virtual machines, whereas the standard will not support it, and support for VMs with ultra disks and premium SSD. So if you have a virtual machine running in a standard SSD, then this enhanced backup policy will not be supported. Only you have to go with the standard. However, so you can create your own policy based on the enhanced or a standard. So here we can see, I can create my own policy. So this is a base template, and I can say call this an acute VM backup policy. So I want to have an, instead of hourly, a daily, okay, I want to have a backup. Or I would say hourly means, we can see call this and starts at 8 a.m. For every 4 hours. The minimum is 4 hours. You can run for 6 hours, you can run for 8 hours, or you can run for 12 hours. So how long you want the backup to run? So I'm selecting every 4 hours. So if the backup takes more than 12 hours, then the backup will get cancelled. Okay. And which time zone you want to run these backups. So you can also select your time zone and you can define a policy. Retain instant recovery snapshots. So there is a concept called as an instant recovery. So when a backup is being taken to a recovery services vault, in order to restore from the recovery services vault, it takes a longer time. If I have, let's say, if I have an 40 terabyte capacity of a storage of a virtual machine backed up to recovery services vault, in order to restore from the recovery services vault, it may take 6 to 8 hours of time because the read-write performance on the recovery services vault is not that great. But in a production environment, my server got crashed, my VM got crashed. But in order to restore it, I cannot wait for an 8 to 9 hours of time. So for that purpose, the Microsoft is giving a concept called as an instant recovery, which is nothing but what we called as a snapshot technology. So this is going to just create a snapshot on the disk of the virtual machine and preserve that backups as part of the recovery point. So what is the advantage of this is yes, a backup of the virtual machine is being stored in the recovery services vault. And also a snapshot is being created on the disk. So we can use this and snapshot to create a new virtual machine or restore the virtual machine. So creating a disk from the snapshot is very, very fast. So let's say if you have some kind of a 4 terabyte capacity of a disk, if you want to create a new virtual machine using this snapshot, it would hardly take a 10 to 15 minutes of time. But if you want to restore it, it may take a couple of hours of time. So as the RTO, the recovery time objective, we want it to be as short as it is. Okay. So in that kind of situations, we use this instant recovery. So how many snapshots you want to create and preserve them? That is what we called as an instant restore. This is a snapshot. And by default for enhanced, it will be 7 days. For a standard, it will be 2 days. You can customize it. And we can see the value is between 1 and 17 for these things. Okay. So I'm just keeping it for 7 days, or I'm just keeping for 2 days. It's going to charge me. Retention of daily backup point. So by default, it will be 30 days. So the data which is going to store in the recovery services vault. So when I say 30 days of time, let's say this is in a 30 or a 300 GB of size. Now every day a full backup is being taken. So when I say every day full backup is being taken, now first day it consumes a 300 GB. Now we are saying that we are going to retain for 30 days of time. It means that this backup will not be overwrite for the next 30 days of time. So this is going to be a first copy. Now the next day when backup happens, it is going to make a one more 300 GB. It is going to become a second copy. Third one, third day, again it becomes a third one, third copy. Again, a fourth one, fourth copy of. Like this, what happens now? For 30 days of time, you have 30 different copies. 30 copies is stored in the recovery services what? Now assume the cost. Now you are paying for this particular cost. You are paying for this particular cost. Now 300 into 30, roughly around 9 terabyte capacity. So we are paying for 9 terabyte capacity of storage for the backups. So initially we might see that the cost could be less, but as it continues grows, we will be. Now that is where we would see called as an. So how many days you want? Basically based on the enhanced will be a default will be 30 days of time. And weekly backup. Same like every Sunday, it takes one backup. Do you want to preserve that backup? Similarly, like in monthly backups, every first Sunday of month, it takes a full backup. Do you want to, how long you want to preserve them? Because in order to restore it, we might need it. So what is the advantage of 30 days of time? I'm saying, so I have 30 copies of time. So 10 days back, there were some files got deleted, but we noticed after 10 days of time. We noticed after 10 days of time. So what happens in this case now, if I don't have a 10 days old backup, I cannot restore that data. For some reasons, someone has deleted a data 10 days back, but we noticed it today that there is no data available. So now what is the advantage I have now by having a 30 copies? I can go back to the 11th day backup of 11th day old backup, and from there I can restore it because there is a data in that. Because in the last 10 days of data, the backup, we don't have the data, deleted data, because it is deleted on the source. So it will not be available on the backup. That is the reason why we make a multiple copies of that in case. So select the virtual machines for which virtual machines you want to applicable. I'm selecting it. And so we can select multiple virtual machines. It displays the list of all the virtual machines which exist. Now I'm getting a VM2. A VM1 is already configured with the backup. That is the reason why it is not displaying. So we have a VM2 which is there. So you can select that and say, okay. And we can select the disks. In future, if you add additional disk to this VM, you want to include that into the backup, then you can do that and enable a backup. This is a one way of where we can enable a backups for virtual machines. This is a centralized mechanism. Now, instead of that, I can go to the individual virtual machine. I can go to the individual virtual machine and go to the backup and recovery. And here we can also select. So I'm selecting the vault, to which recovery services vault you want to have it. Enhanced backup, or you want to create your own policy, you can create again the same steps. Then disk include feature and enable backup. Enable backup. So either of the case, we can do that. From here itself, we can create a recovery vault if you want to have it. So that way we can enable the backup. So now once we have the backup enabled, so we can see a restore option. When I go to the virtual machine, we can see called as a backup. So when we go to the backups here, I would see there are 3 backups are existing, which is, we can see recovery types is a snapshot. So at 9:40 p.m., then 5:37 p.m., then 1:46 p.m., every 4 hours, it took the backup of my virtual machine. Now, for some reasons, if I want to restore it, so I can go to a restore VM and select the restore point. Based on the backup, it will display you the list of backup points available, and you can select the date and time which you want to restore it. Select it. Now restore target. Do you want to create a new virtual machine or replace existing? So when you create a new virtual machine, so it is not going to overwrite the existing VM. It will create a new VM and it attaches the disk to the new VM. But if you say replace existing, so your existing virtual machine will be overwritten with this one. Now this could be a risky activity because for some reasons, okay, if there is some data available, then it overwrites with the backup one. So I'm saying create a new VM. If you want to replace an existing VM, you can select the specific options like replace disks and where do you want to store it. I'm creating a new one. To create a new virtual machine, name of the virtual machine, I'm saying VM1, restore, to which virtual network you want to connect it. And staging location, you can select it. It will going to create automatically. Then we can say call as and restore. Okay, we have to create a storage account for this one. We can have to do that, but this, so and we can select call as and restore. Okay, so we need to create a storage account for this particular one in order to restore it. So once we click on restore, it will create a new virtual machine with the selected date and time of the backup copy. If it is an instant recovery, the recovery process could be 30 minutes to 40 minutes of time or 1 hour. But if it is not an instant recovery, that is a snapshot, not a snapshot, then it would take a couple of hours time to restore that particular virtual machine. Okay. So based on the need to need basis, okay, we can enable the backups because you have to be very careful that, okay, how much data you are trying to save in the target, how many times you're going to preserve that one. So because it's going to be a cost associated with that particular ones. So that way we are good actually.